Good evening. I'm Jacob. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jacob.
It's a privilege to be able to introduce our speaker for tonight. So over about a year ago, I met Joey, and it was kind of an answered prayer the way he came in my life. I was seeking to find somebody to carry this message on like we do, and he kind of showed up in my life. We got connected, and Joey was just willing to surrender to this process, get in the book, start working the steps, and it's just been cool to see what God's been doing in his life. I'm grateful to have him in my life. He's been tremendous help to my sobriety, and just honored to call him a friend. And I'm excited to hear his story and just to see how God's been working in his life. So if y'all would, just please help me welcome Joey.
Hi, my name's Joey. I am a real alcoholic. So, do a little housekeeping. I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. His sponsor has a sponsor. My clean date is 2/20/2025. So, I'm supposed to tell you what life was like, what happened, and what life's like now. But tonight I'm going to tell you what I was like and what happened to me personally and what I am like now. So I grew up, I think, kind of, in my mind, pretty normal. Parents divorced when I was about 5. Mother was soonly remarried. She married a good guy. My father was absent. I never saw him. But my mom married, like I said, this pretty stand-up guy, and he raised me. He owned several businesses. He was, I guess, we were upper middle class. So from that point on, when she married him, I basically had everything I needed and pretty much most of what I wanted. And when I was about 10 years old, my little brother and little sister were born. So from me getting all the attention, my whole life, up until I was 10 years old, I was then kind of put aside for attention. I didn't get as much as I was used to. I didn't, get as much attention as I wanted because, there were 2 children born. Sarah Chelsea was born in 96. Houston was born in 98. So I had siblings 10 years younger than me and 12 years younger than me. So anyways, I found myself in elementary school early on, now that I can think back on it, wanting to be a people pleaser. I wanted to fit in with this crowd. I wanted to fit in with everyone. I just wanted you to like me. I didn't want you to see the weird and kind of off-putting side of me of social awkwardness. I just wanted to be expected or accepted, and I just wanted to have as many friends as possible. So that went on basically, up until, I found Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was able to kind of analyze and, during my 4th step. But, so about the age, I'd say, I don't know, probably about somewhere in high school, 15 or 16, I started smoking weed and started drinking with my buddies. I will warn you, drugs are a part of my story, so if I offend you, you can call your sponsor. I do apologize. So I started smoking weed and I started drinking when I was about 16. And I was running away from home. My mom, my stepfather didn't know where I was. And I kept this up until, my mom had her break-in limit. She was tired of worrying at night, tired of wondering where I was, how long I'd be gone. So finally, one night after a Wednesday night Bible study at the church we went to, she found out where I was, and that my girlfriend at the time, that her mother had been lying to my mother as to where I was at. She was looking me dead in the face saying, "No, I haven't seen your son," and telling my mom this. So she found that out. She was extremely pissed off. And we got home that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night with my mom, kind of throwing all my stuff in trash bags and all my clothes and just basically what little bit I did on. And she said, "I can't take this. You're going to go live with your dad." And in my mind, I said, well, this is going to be interesting. I don't really know where he lives. So anyways, we hopped in the van and we took off north towards Mount Airy. I grew up in Lexington, North Carolina, a little bit south of Winston-Salem. So we headed up 52 north. We came to this double-wide trailer, his last whereabouts. And she dropped me off. I was on the porch with about 4 or 5 trash bags and, just tail lights from the Dodge Caravan, going down the road. So I knocked on the door, and he came to the door. He had a pistol in his hand, and I was as surprised as he was to see me, and he asked me what I was doing there. I said, well, Mom says I'm going to live with you now. So here he is trying to, soak this in, what's going on. Anyways, we get it figured out. I start school up there. About 3 days later, my mom comes back to retrieve me and to kind of amend this mistake that she has now made, that she thinks she has made. And I'm not having it. My dad smokes pot. My dad lets me drink. I'm basically, I'm in paradise, And it doesn't really matter what I did or, who I hung out with. I was just kind of, at my own self-will, and I like to smoke pot and I like to drink whenever I could get a hold of some alcohol. I was about 16 at the time. So she comes back. I tell her, no, I don't want to move back with you. I'm resentful at her. And I am also kind of loving this newfound lifestyle of living with my father. So I start Mount Airy High School. More drug use comes in and still smoking pot. And I remember they had a Disney trip planned for my stepdad, my mom, and for my brother and sister. And she calls me and she tells me about it. And I'm like, all right, when do we leave? She said, oh, you're not going. Just your little sister and brother and me and your stepfather are going. I said, well, shit, that sucks, So I still to this day never been to Disney World. But so I resented that. So I still had a key to that house. I mean, hell, I was there on the weekends when I would come visit. So they take off to Florida, and my mind starts concocting a plan. I'm going to throw the biggest party. I'm going to invite my friends from Lexington over there, and we're just going to have a ball, and they're going to be in Orlando, and we're going to be at the house. And so this party happens, and 2 days go by, and a deputy sheriff comes by the house and tells me basically I'm not allowed to be there. And, long story short, I get asked to leave. I leave to a buddy of mine's house, and later that weekend I try cocaine for the first time. And a couple days later I go back to my dad's. My mom and stepfather had, filed charges for me, or put charges out on me. I had a warrant for my arrest for B&E of my own house, my childhood home. So I go to court, and they had this deal, worked out with the prosecutor that if I went to military school, then they would drop the charges. So I did that. I did get my high school diploma. I did end up going to college later on, but before that I went to the Army for a brief period of time. And we won't get into that. So moving right along, I get honorably discharged from the Army. I come home, and there's still just something, what we call a God-sized hole inside of me that I'm trying to fill with every external person, place, or thing. I'm trying to fill this God-sized hole. And as I'm trying to fill this hole, I'm trying more and more drugs. I'm needing more and more of them. I start doing ecstasy with my friends, and then I end up, where was I? Okay, I end up, I think about 20 years old. Someone introduced me to opiates, to pain pills. So about 20 years old, I started doing pain pills. And, those spiral out of control. I'm, physically addicted. I needed to have them just to feel well. I'm also drinking. And I'll stop right here and I'll say, I always thought for the remainder of my life, yeah, I'll need to quit the hard stuff, but drinking, I will always have to have drinking because it's so readily available. I can get it almost any time. And it's, more or less socially acceptable in most, functions. So I always thought I would drink, if I quit the hard stuff. So anyway, so I'm on these pain pills, and I progress. By the time I'm 22, I start IVing these pain pills. And as soon as I did that first time, I knew that I had arrived. I do not want to feel anything else but this. I was not concerned with any substances or alcohol or anything. This was my thing, and this is what I'd like to pursue as far as substances go, to change the channel in my mind to make me feel okay. So right then and there, my life takes a very, very severe, pivot, on the trajectory in my life. So from that point, and for the next, I was about 22. So from that point on till about the time I'm 38, I'm an IV drug user. I am a thief. I am an absent father. I am a drunk driver. And I'm a liar. I will tell anyone, anything, any type of manipulation story that I can come up with to get you to do something for me. Whether it's rides, whether it's money, anything that I could tell you to get me what I wanted. Because I didn't care about you, it's what I want. And so, from 22 to 39, that's the type of lifestyle I live. And I end up going to prison 4 times for a total of about 7.5 years. Every time I do, go to prison, I tell my family, this is really broke me. I'm going to get out. I'm going to do right. Promises, sworn off the old lifestyle. A couple weeks later, after I get out, I'm back to the same thing. Now, I said from 22 to 39, I lived that lifestyle, but I'm going to back that up to 2021, when I first got introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. At this point, I was just drinking. I was living with my mother in Sanford, stepfather, and I had wore their patience thin. I drank every night. I drank as much as I could, as they'd let me get by with. I didn't have a car, so I tried to get to Food Line liquor stores as best I could. That went on for about 10 months, and she said, "Joey, you've got to do something. You can't live here anymore." So I said, "All right, well, I'll go to treatment. I'll see what this, treatment rehab thing is all about. I've never been before. I think I'm about 37 at the time." So I go to detox from alcohol to a place in Lexington called Daymark. I detox there from fentanyl. And I stay 7 days, and from there I go to a place called Arca. Arca accepts me. It's the old Arca on Union Cross Road. So at Arca, you go to groups, you go to your meetings, you go to your workshops, you work with your counselor, and you do, your AA and your NA meetings. Well, this guy came in. I was out there for 2 weeks at Arca. This guy comes in and he tells his story, and it might have been the first AA speaker meeting I ever went to. And he comes in, and I remember this vividly because he wasn't standing up; he was just sitting down. At the speaker meeting, he's sitting down telling a story. So he's telling his story, and in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, check, I've done that. Yes, I do feel like that." And by the time his talk's almost through, I'm saying, "Man, this guy's got a hold of something. His life's way better. He's found a way to manage, just going through life without getting high or out getting wasted." I said, "I want to get some of that. Whatever he did, whatever he had to do to get that, I want whatever that is." So that was the catalyst for me in AA in 2021. And so I get out, I complete ARCA Valentine's Day 2021. I get out, I move into an Oxford house, and that same guy that I heard speak is the guy that ends up being my sponsor. I will forever be grateful to him. And he's still in my life today. Actually, my birthday's tomorrow, and then his is the day after. So anyways, so this starts, I move into the Oxford House in Winston, and it's 2021. I start going to AA. Me and my sponsor are working the steps. I'm going to meetings, 90 and 90. I'm doing service work, helping people move, yada, yada, yada. I'm doing the deal. I'm locked in. And I keep that attitude for about, I think it was 5 months and 10 days. I slack off. Tim calls me. He won't care if I break his anonymity. But so Tim calls, how's your prayer and meditation, dude? It's going great, doing it every morning. Lies. I have slacked off with my recovery. I have slacked off with prayer and meditation. I'm hardly going to meetings. I pretty much decided that I've learned everything that I need from AA within these past 5 months, that I'm going to tweak this a little over here, and I'm going to change, my meetings to maybe twice a month. I don't need all that AA. Who needs all that AA? So I move in with a girl. I'm back on the hard stuff probably about a month later. And I stay out for a good bit. And I come back around in AA, I'd probably say it was my last time in prison, which was basically the complete year of 2023. I stay sober about half the time I'm in prison. So when I get out of prison, I was locked up for a year. I get out, I'm sober about 6 months, and I get out and move into another Oxford house. Because when I get out of prison, my mom's told me, son, I love you, but you have 3 days to get out of this house. You're a man, you've got to figure it out. I said, okay, Mom. So I figured it out, moved into an Oxford house, and things are going good. I've got a sponsor. Everything's going good. We're getting in the book. We're working the steps. And this term in sobriety, I complete the whole, steps 1 through 12. And, when I got to the step where, you admitted, you're powerless and that there's something greater than yourself out there. Real quick, can I see a show of hands of everybody that has over a year sober? That was my higher power. That was my higher power. I had a problem with God. I didn't know who he was, what he was, or how he worked, if it was a he or a she. But I knew that there was something almost tangible in these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that were getting these people to a year, 2 years, 10, 20 years. And I knew I wanted to hold on to that, whatever these guys were doing, whoever they were hanging out with, whatever they read, whatever they did. I knew that's what I was going to do. So I did my 5th step, and I thought it was sincere. I really did. But it didn't take that time. I managed to stay sober about 16 months, and I went back out. I got drugs delivered to that Oxford house, and I stayed out for about 5 months. And I went to treatment up at Hope Valley in Dobson. And when I went to treatment in Hope Valley, I went to detox first, the same day Mark in Lexington. But that first night at Hope Valley, I looked back over my life and my terms in sobriety and the promises the book talks about. I've got to experience just a tiny portion of those, and then I'd go back out. I had a talk with God that night at Hope Valley. I was in the prone position, on my room floor, just kind of flat on my face. And I prayed the most sincere, most genuine prayer that I could muster. I said, God, I don't want to fight this anymore. It's ruining my life. It's broken my relationships. I have almost no relationship with my daughter, who I love. And I know she wants to have her dad around. I said, I'm done. I'm really, really, truly done. Whatever these people tell me to do up here at Hope Valley, I'm going to do it. I told my counselor, Angie, if you want me to sleep on these pews at night, I'll do it. I didn't care. I was done. One of the phone calls I made up at Hope Valley was to a sponsor I had for about, 20 hours. And this guy, Will, he said, who is this again? I said, it's Joey. I called you that one time. You asked me if I was willing to do anything that you told me to do. I said, sure. I was willing to get numbers, 3 apiece at each meeting. Yes, that guy. I'm in treatment. He says, well, man, I've got 2 or 3 sponsees I can't really handle anymore. But I know a guy who is looking for a sponsee. And it was the guy that introduced me. It was Jacob. He was looking for a sponsee. I said, great. I gave Jacob a call the next day. I'd never talked to Jacob. I've never met him. He says that he's seen me at a Beta Meekum retreat holding a snake, but I don't remember him. So anyways, so me and Jacob start talking. At this point, I'm just, it's cliche, but I'm letting go and I'm letting God just make these decisions. And I'm praying and I'm meditating as I walk around the track up at Hope Valley every morning after our 9 o'clock class. And, it just so happened, my boss, I work for a moving company still. We do long distance, local moves, storage units, whatever. He still held a spot for me at my job. He actually came and picked me up when I completed Hope Valley. So this spiritual rope, I guess you could call it, I've begun to develop up at Hope Valley. I can feel it pull me another way. I can feel it pull me one way and then kind of pull me away another way. And it's developing, but it develops at a very slow rate, even today still. So I'm not making any plans. I'm not running on my own self-will. I'm just kind of taking every day, as it is. I'm trying to keep my head where my feet are and just stay present in today. So I don't really make any plans. I call to an Oxford house who, the guy there works for my boss too. His name's Chris. So anyways, I call him. They've got a vacancy. And while I'm at Hope Valley, I meet probably one of the best friends I've still got in my life today. I think he's here somewhere. But anyways, so we start hanging out, and he ends up getting into the Oxford house that I'm trying to get into. And he completes a week before me. And after I complete, I go into that Oxford house, and I still live in that Oxford house today. I've been there about 13 months. So I move in, I leave Hope Valley, I did all my assignments, and when I was at Hope Valley, I had, some AA knowledge, in my head, prior to the two terms of sobriety I'd already had in my life. And I prayed to God just to give me a fresh set of eyes to just go in there like a complete, green, newcomer. I tried to, absorb as much as I could through a new pair of eyes. I took notes. I did all my assignments, and I did them thoroughly to the best of my ability. So I complete Hope Valley. I get out. I'm still talking to Jacob. I finally meet Jacob. I don't know 2 or 3 days after getting out of Hope Valley. And we get in the book. We start working steps. We're meeting about every week. I do another 4-step. I really dig in and kind of try to get some stuff that I've missed the other time. And we get all the way through the steps, and we get to the amends. Make a list of amends. And they didn't come all to me at once. I kind of had to think about them as the day progressed. I still, amends that I've forgotten about that I still need to make still pop up. I actually just made one to my daughter's grandmother. When my daughter's mother and I lived together with her parents, like I said, I was a liar and I was a thief. I had this job early in the morning, and her mother's pocketbook was sitting there on the counter that morning when I left for work. And at this point, I was faking going to work. See, I'm going to work. No, I'm going to get high. I don't have a job anymore, but I'm not man enough to tell you that I don't. I'm going to lead you on thinking I have a job, and I'm just going to postpone that catastrophe, that controversy, that argument later. So I take some money from her purse that morning, and that's been about 11 years ago. And I had met her at my daughter's volleyball game and sat with her and talked to her 2 or 3 times, but it was 2 nights ago I sat at my daughter's volleyball game. And after the game was over, it's sort of like God lined that up, because me and her were just left on the bleachers alone talking. And I was like, cover me up, God, here. I'm going in. I'm going to make this amends. And I told her what I'd done. How can I make it right? And I had a $100 bill in my hand. And I went to give it to her. She said, no, you keep your money. I said, well, Deb, how can I make this right? And she said, you just did. I said, okay. That's one of the more smoother amends that I've done. I'll tell you that. But now I jump at any act of service that I can be. I pray and I meditate every morning. I'm not going to say every morning. Sometimes I'm rushed and sometimes I forget. I suffer from the human condition. But I try to, as best I can each morning. And I pray to the God of my understanding that he gives me an open mind, that he keeps me honest, and he keeps a spirit of acceptedness in me today. That he keeps me present in every moment and keeps my family protected. And just remove the bondage of self-will from me so that I can help my fellow man. And anytime, anywhere that I can be of service, even if it's something small, like holding the door open for somebody or just giving somebody a jump or, whatever it is, I jump to do it. But I found out that if I can help you, I get out of my head. And I have found something today to fill that God-sized hole, and it's God. And like I said, I struggle with God. I still, I don't know, what religion I am. But I know that I'm spiritual. And I know that I have a spiritual connection with my higher power that I try my best to keep in conscious contact with every day of my life. I hang out and I hang around. Today my life is surrounded with good people in AA. Someone told me if you want to stay safe, stay in the middle. I mean, staying in the middle of the meeting, before the meeting, the meeting after the meeting, going to get coffee, going to play putt-putt, going to shoot some ball, working with others. Stay in the middle. It's safe in the middle. So that's what I've been doing. And Jacob, he's just... I feel like he's been the perfect sponsor for me. I told him I'd give him $20 if he'd come up here and say some good things about me tonight. So I'd get with him after the meeting. But today my relationships are restored. They're restored with my mom. There's a part of my story I left out because I would have started bawling. I lost my brother when he was 16 in 2015. But anyways. My relationship with my mother's restored. Me and my sister, she lives in Colorado. We have a great relationship today. She doesn't have to hide her pocketbook when she comes home to visit. Neither does my mom. I still don't know where my dad's at, but hopefully he's doing okay. But my relationships at work, I'm employable now. I'm honest. Because I learned in the past 2 times in sobriety, I might get a thought, I shop at Food Line so much, it's probably fine. I didn't scan the water that was on the bottom of my cart, and just little bitty pieces of dishonesty and just things that I know was wrong. I'll start to do those things, and I keep it in here. I don't tell my sponsor. I don't tell anybody. And those little wrongdoings, that dishonesty, it eats at me, and it builds more wrongdoings, and before I know it, I'm out on another relapse. So this time, I'm holding on to this thing like a life preserver, with both arms, both hands, and both feet. And I don't hold things inside anymore. That phone used to weigh 500 pounds. Oh, I don't want to bother them. They're probably busy. They don't want to hear from me. I do use that phone today. I've probably got about, 90 or 100 contacts in the rooms of AA. And if none of them answer, and it's just between me and my higher power, that's okay. They're going to call me back. So, I'm just so beyond amazingly blessed in my life that I get to wake up sober, that I get to look the world in the eyes. I don't know why I'm getting this choked up. I didn't plan to at all. This is stuff I normally talk about all the time. But I get to look the world in the eyes. I don't have to look down. I don't have to be ashamed to look someone in the eyes because I've lied from them or stole from them or whatever. I feel good about the relationships I have in my life. I'm not at the steering wheel anymore in my life. It's just amazing how God just kind of puts things into place for you and lines stuff up. If you can just sit back and ride the wave and trust in God as you understand Him. All my needs are being met right now. I've got everything I need. I've got a great relationship with my daughter. It's great. And I wouldn't go back out for the world. I know I've got a toolkit today. I know how to use those tools. And I know how to pick up the phone. And it's just a complete 180 from the person I was. And I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. That's all I got. Thanks.
Very